खुदा ने मुझको दिया तेरी दुआओं से, तेरी दुआओं से मिला है जो भी मिला तेरी दुआओं से, तेरी दुआओं से।
Can you get Lubna Nadvi first?
Yeah, because we told at 8:15. So how many minutes is this seems? How many minutes is this Nasheed?
6 minutes.
Eh?
6 minutes.
So there's 3.5 minutes left. Okay, well it's like about a minute or so. Let's get Nadvi. Yeah.
ये तेरा मेरा माँ तेरी दुआओं से, तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से, माँ की दुआ जन्नत की दुआ, जन्नत की दुआ, की दुआ, जन्नत की दुआ, की दुआ, जन्नत की दुआ। ये दिया शोहरत कदम कदम पे मेरे, ये दिया शोहरत कदम कदम पे मेरे, नसीब ऐसा मिला माँ तेरी दुआओं से, तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से। तवाफ मैंने किया थी सही मैंने किया थी सही जो मैं किया माँ तेरी दुआओं से, तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से।
And your other guest? Your other guest, Anthony? What time do you want him to come on? After 9?
9:05. Yeah.
9:05.
So this guest will come in now. What's his name? Samuel will join us shortly. We'll talk about the other items.
मैं दुश्मनों से बचा माँ तेरी दुआओं से, तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से।
You got it. You're getting it still.
She's there when you're ready.
She's on the line.
No, she's there when you're ready. We need to call out.
No, call it. Because we almost finished it. Nasheed, isn't so? Little listen, little bit of the Nasheed, and we can talk to her.
She's on.
She's on. We just tell her that a minute or so we just leave up live tips. We're on Facebook Live, eh? How many minutes we got left? Almost there. We're almost there.
Almost there.
Yeah. Then we can. She's listening. I'll just introduce and then we'll get her live. Make this a little bit soft, yeah? It's very loud. A little bit soft. Slightly higher. Perfect. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another edition of News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Peter Marisburg 105.6 FM, and streaming on www.alansar.org. That's today. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaba bikum. My name is Yunus Sacoor, and I will be in your company for the next 2 hours. I will be interviewing our guests shortly. Today, the date is the 5th of Safar 1447 AH, equivalent to the 30th of July 2025. It's a cold evening in KZN, has been the case in the last few days, so I hope people are keeping warm and cozy to listen to a very interesting program tonight. We will be discussing an update on the Mkhwanazi inquest, which is quite topical. We will also be chatting about the visit from Palestine by the Fatah Movement. We had them live, at Al Ansar together with United for Palestine on Monday night. We will also be linking up with Msunduzi Municipality in Peter Marisburg, where we'll get an update on service delivery issues in Piemberg, because lots of Piemberg listeners want to know what's happening in their local municipality, including some forensic investigations that are taking place. With me in the studio, I will be joined by Lubna Nadvi. She's the executive member of KZN Palestine Solidarity Forum. She's also an academic and also a lecturer in the University of KZN. I'm not sure whether she's still lecturing. We'll also be joined later in the program by Anthony Waldhausen, Msunduzi Association of Resident Civics, known as MARRC. Samuel Kennedy, our political analyst, civic activist, will be joining us in the studio. So will Hassan, Motala, the economist and asset manager. There's lots of the issues that are happening now has an impact on the economy of the country. So let's see how that impacts on our overall situation. The show is interactive and we welcome your comments, which can be sent to us on the studio WhatsApp number 060-904-1056. So with me live on air, I have Lubna Nadvi. She's from the Palestine Solidarity Forum. Lubna, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International. Thank you for joining us this evening, Lubna, amidst you being at the Durban Harbour in the late hours of last night, awaiting the arrival of a ship allegedly carrying dangerous weapons destined for Israel from India. Can you give us an update what happened there last night, Lubna? Is the boat still in the harbor, or have they already left? The information that you received regarding the ship carrying dangerous weapons destined for Israel, where did you get this information from? Is there any indication why the ship sailed via South Africa, or is sailing via South Africa to Israel? Okay, so we'll wait for more information on the situation. You know, as an activist, if the South African authorities do find these weapons as alleged on the ship, where to from there? Okay, thanks for that updated information. Um, you are aware, and you attended, a function on Monday where a Palestinian organization representing Fatah visited South Africa courtesy of the African National Congress, and they attended a meeting in Durban, amongst other places. They were also in Joburg. Now, what is your position as a KZN PSF and South Africa Palestine movement on Fatah and their history? Now, does Fatah have a role to play in the future of Palestinians and a Palestinian state?
Is something that we will only see unfold as we move forward. And effectively, when it's perhaps just all of the different components of Palestinian society, all the different political parties and civil society groups have to come together in order to decide their future collectively. And so Fatah will have to be part of that.
Now, what is your impression of their visit to South Africa and KZN and their message to the local people? Because I interviewed them on Monday night on radio, and the Secretary General, Jibril, he mentioned that his family is split between Hamas and Fatah, and they believe that through negotiation, they can reach a settlement and avoid further annihilation of the people in Palestine, and the genocide is continuing. What is your impression of their visit? Do you believe that the fact that the ANC government accepted them as a delegation, a Palestinian delegation, uh, will they make a difference in ensuring that they can secure a ceasefire, or is it just an academic exercise?
It's a long-term relationship and camaraderie with the Fatah party and the president, President Cyril Ramaphosa, expressed in his comments at the summit of the National, Liberation Movement Summit that was held, which is why Fatah was in South Africa, that they've had a long association, this is the ANC, they've had a long association with Fatah. And of course, Fatah then expressed their sort of admiration and solidarity with the ANC. So our impression is that Fatah's message to ANC and South Africa at large is that they believe in the importance of unifying their people and working with groups like Hamas and so on, so that they can find a collective solution. And that is what they tried to convey in their visit, that unity and unifying the Palestinians is the most important thing to them. And yes, it's true that because the Israelis have divided Palestinian families by virtue of the checkpoints and the apartheid war, and of course the Bantustan arrangements that are set up, families who are isolated in Gaza and support Hamas, and then they have families and blood relations in the West Bank. So people have unfortunately been, separated and yeah, have basically got allegiances to different political parties. A similar thing happened here in South Africa, where people from the same camp may have been supporting different political parties. It's part of, life. But I think that the message that Fatah was trying to convey is that they appreciate the support and solidarity of the South African people. They have asked that we continue to support the Palestinians and support them not as being members of Fatah or Hamas or any other group, but support them as being Palestinians. And I think that is a sort of unifying message as well. So my impression is that I think they have tried to convince South Africans that they are working towards peace or as a ceasefire at least, as a starting point, as much as possible. They accept and acknowledge their challenges, that they have divisions amongst them, and that they're trying to work through it. So we, have basically extended our solidarity to them as Palestinians. So we'll continue to do that. But of course, some difficult questions were asked of this delegation, and they had to accept that South Africans have questions about how they're going about their operations and how they do things. So I think all in all it was a successful visit, but certainly one that had some challenges which Fatah as a party has had to address. And on the whole, they got a very good and warm reception from South Africans wherever they went.
Now, just to come back to the reality on the ground, Lubna, in Palestine, in Gaza, we know that a genocide is taking place, and there's starvation and major problems out on the ground. Now, many clips are coming through where people are saying there is truly a special place in hell for these Israelis or these Zionists, because you recall that a few days ago, some of the children and families in Egypt have been filling, sort of lentils and other necessities in bottles and placed it in the sea, so that those that can reach the Palestinians. And these Zionist soldiers have been removing these bottles. They've actually reached the shore. So there is a prevention of humanitarian aid to come in to Gaza to assist those families and children facing starvation. I know there are comments coming through that some humanitarian aid trucks have gone through, but a lot of them have been hijacked on the way. Your comments on that, Lubna?
Get flour, and they were shot at. We've seen how in the last sort of few attempts by so-called American approved and Israeli approved aid distribution organizations, every time the Palestinians tried to get to a certain point where the aid is being distributed from, they get shot at, or they get harmed in some way or the other. And of course, the most recent is this attempt by ordinary Egyptian citizens, because obviously there are so many Egyptians that are completely unhappy with how their government is conducting itself. So they have basically been trying to get food to the Egyptians, and to the Palestinians, and it's a very innovative way to try and get food across in plastic bottles across the ocean. So some of those plastic bottles did reach the Gazans, but the majority of it is being removed. The Israelis. Country in the world, every state in the world has seen how this is unfolded, and they have all said that it's unacceptable that Israel is doing this to the Palestinians by withholding aid and food from human beings, basically, because no human being should be put in that situation. And the most recent step taken by France, for example, which has said it's going to recognize a Palestinian state, and it has shown, quite a bit of solidarity towards the Palestinians. It's saying that basically even Europe, which is usually sort of, somewhat vague on its support for Palestinians, and I mean the governments, not the people, it's that the European citizens are very pro-Palestinian in many parts of the continent. So what we're saying, different levels of support coming through from the sort of broader European alliances, and in terms of condemning the Israelis as well for their actions. So the situation with the aid is very troubling. There are some trucks that have been allowed in, but it's not enough, obviously, given the level of starvation. And of course, the hundreds of Palestinians that would still be alive today if they had had access to food. And that's even more tragic. It was bad enough that the Israelis were bombing them from the air and even the ground invasion and shooting at them.
Asif, where is that guy going?
Starvation.
Huh? Toilet. He's going to the Janaza there.
European Jews in the concentration camps during the Second World War. So it's absolutely tragic, and the global community has to work so much harder now to try and get food to the Palestinians, and all we can do is continue to push for the Rafah border to open. This attempt by some Arab countries to drop aid from the sky, they've been trying to do airdrops. That doesn't make any sense because it falls on top of people or on structures. It creates, problems for people. So the safest and best way to get aid in is through the land or sea, and those are the routes that they really work hardest to stop it coming in from. So I think that as activists, we have to keep continuing with our work, with our solidarity, with raising awareness, and push our government to do what it can. There is an ongoing starvation at the moment, and we are appealing to our government to do something in terms of something substantial. Of course, our aid organizations like Gifted for Givers and others continue to provide whatever support they can, but that aid will only get in if the Israelis allow it to get in. But I'm, feeling somewhat, I think, positive regarding the, various positions that have been taken by countries like France that are slowly realizing that supporting Israel is not going to, or buying into this constant narrative that Hamas is the enemy, or that there's all this anti-Semitism and therefore they have to continuously support Israel. I mean, governments like the French have seen through that, and we need more of the European governments and more governments around the rest of the world to hold Israel accountable through sanctions, through isolating it to the United Nations, and through, of course, enforcing the arrest warrants that have been issued by the ICC. So all of these things are in place to hold the Israelis accountable. Why it's not happening, it just makes one wonder. But I do feel somewhat positive that we're moving towards hopefully some, I wouldn't say necessarily complete resolution to the problem, but some hope might be there, because if you don't have hope, you don't really have anything. You have to have hope and faith and belief that things will get better, and that's what we're working towards.
Lubna, I'm going to ask you a very awkward question. That the Gazans are blockaded. They're stuck in the middle. They're being, starved. They're being bombed. There's a genocide taking place. The rest of the world is talking. Israel, being a small country, they seem to be controlling the entire world. Now that Rafah border that's controlled by Egypt, they playing to the tune of the Zionists. Can't there be some kind of, the terrorist state is really Israel here. Now, if it was the other way around, certainly you would have had the powers of be going in and just breaking through these borders and taking aid in and challenging Israel. Now, cannot that happen? Or is everybody just keeping away from the aid that's required, humanitarian aid that's required in Gaza? They can obviously break through and push the Egyptians one side and tell them, listen, you cannot be complicit with Israel. People are dying. We need to take aid in. So can't there be some kind of bravery on the part of activists to go in? I know there was a march and a lot of activists wanted to take aid in, but they were arrested and held back because they didn't have the superpower to go through. Is there any way that can happen?
By citizens around the world to try and break the siege, whether it's by sea and taking through, various flotillas to try and break the siege by sea, and by land as well. There was this March to Gaza initiative recently. But every time what has to happen is either the Israelis themselves, they will seize the boats and, capture the people on board. And this has been happening now for several years because so many flotillas have tried to get through with food aid and medicines and what have you. The same with the March to Gaza. So what has to actually happen is that governments have to actually, either take a resolution at the United Nations, which is such a weak organization, but governments have to actually make their armies available to actually face the kind of military might that Israel constantly shows. It uses, of course, American supplied and British supplied, whereabouts advisors, weapons from supplied arms to strong arm all the civilians because the citizens and the civilians who gather and try to break the siege are unarmed. They don't come with guns and tanks and weapons and stuff. They don't have that because that's not what they're there for. They just want to get humanitarian aid to the Gazans. But the Israeli army constantly uses its military sort of, heart to try and bully basically everyone. And the question that you asked is, can't people just break through? Well, if they took guns and weapons with them, yes, possibly they could break through, but they're not. So they have to, if a gun is pointed at the citizens, if they are on a boat and the Israeli army descends on the boat and captures them and kidnaps them and holds them hostage at gunpoint, there's not much they can do. But what needs to happen is that governments of the world need to avail their armies to stop that. So, if, for example, a flotilla is going from a certain country, why can't the army of that country, the navy of that country, accompany the flotilla, basically, with weapons on board, sanctioned by their government? So, say a boat is going from, I don't know, Spain or whichever country from Europe, why can't the Spanish government, send its navy with to accompany that flotilla? I mean, there are creative ways in which this can happen. And so, if the Israeli army tries to attack that flotilla, the Spanish army is there. Or, you know, well, I won't say the American army because they won't do that. But there are so many other countries that are pro-Palestinian. What is preventing them from sending their armies to actually, because that is what is required. You have
Correct.
to meet Israeli military force with equal force.
Our army is extremely weak. We can't even manage, those countries close to our borders, let alone going. At least we took Israel to ICJ and they still stubborn, not listening. But the indications are clear that the rest of the world is just watching, including Iran. They took on Israel. if they really felt for the Palestinians, they could have went in there and, you know, blasted the Rafah border and allowed the trucks to go in and say, Israel, let's talk now. But anyway, I think, you know, that's the least we can do from an Islamic perspective, is to make du'as, to make noises out here, to feel about what's happening, and inshallah, the help of Almighty Allah will come soon. I must thank you for joining us, Dr. Lubna Nadvi. You shared some very important information with us. It's food for thought on the part of South Africans and indeed, you know, other parts of the world. But I thank you for joining us, and inshallah, we'll chat with you sometime in the future again, Lubna. Assalamu alaikum. No, it's a pleasure having you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That was Dr. Lubna Nadvi, KZN PSF activist. She gave us quite a broad overview of the situation in Palestine, including Fatah's role and, you know, how far can they take this process. And she also spoke about the ongoing genocide that's taking place. On that note, we'll take a break just before the news, and inshallah we'll continue after the news. I know we got a few minutes before the news. How many minutes? 3 minutes, 4 minutes. Let's play that nasheed after this, and then we play the news. You know that what's that one? You know that the nasheed that the one I always play. Maybe we can play that one before the news play. Yeah, that's the one. After the news play that, and then do the news and continue. Sam, how are you, man? Oh, he's caught up there.
28888. The Sultan Bahu Family Freight, a freight with purpose. Sultan Bahu is a registered NPO and PDA. The chaos in this country is beyond comprehension. Virtually everyone is displaced, hungry, and in urgent need.
You know, after the news, we'll play the other nasheed.
Okay. The Al-Bundaq Foundation has been working tirelessly to
Maybe I'm
just on you the always rather Qadri.
No, the other one, that one that
Hasbunallah.
Yeah, Hasbunallah, yeah. So we got about 3 minutes. Let's play that nasheed, and then we can stop for the news. She was quite talking a lot of issues, so I don't want to cut it out.
Or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
Explore the world with Worldview Travel. Let our expert team guide you in creating a travel experience that exceeds your expectations. Unbeatable flight deals, corporate and leisure bookings, luxurious accommodations, tailor-made packages, reliable car rentals, comprehensive travel insurance, seamless visa assistance. Visit us at 55 Problem Keys Road, Durban. Call 031 001 7062 or
minimize
0718
Yeah, no problem.
Follow us on Instagram.
Maximize.
Yeah.
Worldview Travel creates memories to last a lifetime. Welcome to Simplex Radio. Visit our showroom for the full range of car audio. Our TV department carries top brands with quality LED panels, full HD to Ultra HD, and now the experience of Super Ultra HD. Visit our theater rooms and transform your home with brands like Onkyo, Integra, Denon, Boston Acoustics, Yamaha, and more for quality audio visual experience. Now available, full range of home appliances. A one-stop shopping experience. Call 031 306 4029 or Kenilworth Park, 202 Bristol Road, Old Port. Simplex Radio. Friendly, you can trust.
Get ready for a morning of fun and excitement. Join me, Razia Renrich, and Zahir Basa at the grand opening of In My Home.
You know, we actually don't need to.
Saturday, August 2nd. Don't miss out on
We
a
actually
morning of
don't need to.
entertainment, giveaways, and never to be
We can take this
repeated
out
special
later,
offers.
Women's Day, and then we can go straight.
Yeah,
We'll be
no problem.
broadcasting live
And then we can
from the
play.
In My Home store on
Yeah,
the
play the
London
news
Road.
after that, and then we'll continue with the other nasheed.
Yeah.
Mark your calendars for Saturday, August 2nd at 10 a.m. In My Home store.
But aren't we running out of time now?
311.
It's already 8:59.
We are friends.
We can play that nasheed after that, and
After news.
after the news.
And
Yeah.
then we can come.
Yeah.
We can come back.
Yeah.
But
How long is the news?
your news are
4 minutes.
Yeah, I'd rather play the news because 1 minute's time. You're not going to delay the news now.
Yeah.
You can play that nasheed, and then after the next break, we can play the Algale. We can play that what you call
For more information,
Salgala, you can play it maybe before we go into when we finish the Peter Marsberg guide.
Yeah.
An informative.
Right, we don't cut that halfway through.
This is Al-Ansar News.
Usually took the whole hour.
Huh?
Usually took the whole hour.
Well, we started at 20 past. She spoke quite a bit. It was interesting, yeah, interesting. And then I wasn't sure what time Samuel was going to come in.
What about our economist?
Coming in after 9. But we need to interview the guy from PMberg.
Yeah, he's busy. He's actually on.
He's on already.
Yeah.
We told him at 9 o'clock. Isn't
9:05.
that Samuel? Oh, there he's there.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll
Don't
interview him.
Don't edit the stage. Don't edit the stages as yet.
Samuel, Sam, we interviewing this oak from PMberg. His name is
Who?
Anthony Waldhausen.
I know him.
Now, maybe I want you to just add some questions because he's been involved with Ravi to cover that forensic investigation in PMberg in respect of some allegations. So what I'll do is maybe I'll introduce you, I'll welcome you, and then I'll just ask you to interview the guy. Interview him just to say that you understand his organization is called MARRC,
Yeah, I know.
and they involve
I've done some debates with
would
them.
Ravi Pillai to do that investigation. How far have they gone? But also there's also an allegation that the Msunduzi Municipality mayor is implicated on a murder. In respect of, there's a murder of one of the ANC leader, Sindiso Makaka. So are they aware of it, or is it
Oh,
just
my
like
then youth league.
yeah? So I'm just going to tell him that Samuel is one of my colleagues here, and he will be asking you a few questions because he'll be online. Right.
Where's the document?
There's the document here. I'll just welcome him.
Change it.
Samuel, I'll just welcome him. Then you ask him, you guys are part of this team that's involved in investigation. Can you update us?
Yeah.
And then about this Mayor Deza article, you can ask him probably about 10-15 minutes. I'm going to just introduce to you, Sam, to say that
There's our
we're going to chat with this guy.
And
And we're going to basically talk some issues about service delivery in Msunduzi, has it improved, etc. So you and I can interact with him. Come in, Hassan, Assalamu alaikum. Hassan, you want to sit here or you want to sit that side? There.
Then it's chaotic. Then on the interpretation that has been advanced by the respondents.
There's a funeral.
But
They didn't have space in their flat, so at 9:30 they're taking the janaza from here to Lodge Grove. There's some lady passed away in West Road, one of the flats. So we always make the Jamaat Khana available. But there's a whole lot of cars down there. Yeah, funeral is scheduled for 9:30. I think Samuel, you were heading that side.
No, I knew
You
something.
seen there was a crowd there.
Yeah, big
Yeah, I thought Samuel. Yeah, no, it'll be buried at Hilal, but the janaza in Lodge Grove. So 9:30 they leave. I thought, yeah, I thought Samuel was heading towards the funeral there. Now we're just helping these people, man. The flat is too small.
Secondary school where teachers found a threatening note. The police demanding a monthly.
Samuel, that auntie was gaining momentum, so I just couldn't cut her off.
No, I was cool. Don't worry.
And I think
know
she gave a correct perspective.
This is threats to the teachers' lives if they don't pay. Finally, international story.
Yeah, everyone will have
impose a host of sanctions and measure.
Yeah, but I'll give Samuel a chance. Then we'll just when Samuel finishes that interview, then we can do that nasheed after that. But let's get the one immediately after is that Hasbunallah, you know.
After the news, huh?
After the news.
Okay.
The nation rather had also chosen to launch investigations into goods imported from
Because we hosted these Fatah guys, so I wanted the opposition Palestinian movement to comment on it. Because a lot of guys don't understand.
What about the clip?
Which clip? Which one?
Your weather is 20 to produce a quick reminder of our top stage.
Yeah, do the clip and then we can play the nasheed and then I'll just welcome that guy, Anthony Waldhausen.
The council was coming down 2 years ago in Howie. That's the name.
Radio Al-Ansar, keeping you in the loop.
This segment is brought to you by Kentfield Auto, your RMI approved service and repair specialist.
Puppets of the very powers that harm Muslims the most. Let's break it down with historical facts, political strategies, and religious reflection. One,
This is 3
the
minutes
real game
29.
of power, not faith.
Isn't this
Many Muslim governments, like Saudi Arabia, UAE,
Yeah, we'll just
Egypt,
little bit of
are
it
ruled
and then
by
we can
monarchs or
do the
military
nasheed.
regimes. Their main goal isn't Islam.
But this will be after the
And
interview.
to stay in power, they need
No, let's do the nasheed after this clip. Yeah, but let's not play the full clip. Stop at a point and then we can just play the nasheed.
technology.
Kentfield Auto, your RMI and insurance approved workshop to
Bring the
handle them
workshop,
all.
bring the-
236 Brickfield Road, Overport. Call us on
What you got
021
live? This clip or not?
2072399. Kentfield Auto.
Now
Radio Al-Ansar.
Don't smoke this clip also. My daughter smokes me. My God say she'll get more than me. I don't play this clip. I think I got my one. She said, your one you play it anytime you go the clip. I'll see what we do. This year we always finish with them. Yeah. But we can play it after we finish the management guy. We'll have a shot and then the guys more with me, we don't play that clip. Faisal was telling me he's sure he played it or something. The guys wanted more of it.
Yes, we had.
Because that one's got great meaning.
The guest we had from Analyst.
Yeah.
She also requested.
Yeah.
It's making its way around.
Yeah. There's a good meaning to that machine. So Maria was amongst this one. That's the bit. Yeah.
I'm a technician as well. In training. So one of these nights you can put on this.
Come to the conclusion we're going to get anything out of the States. Running all over the world. They should have done it a year ago.
The guy is still waiting. He's listening. Okay. So maybe if there's 1 minute left, it stops at a point that we can commence, so we can get him on air. Let's join this. Let's take a look. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to News in Focus live on Radio Al-Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Peter Masberg 105.6 FM, and streaming on www.alansar.org.za. Before the news break, we were chatting with Dr. Lubna Nadvi, KZN PSF member. She gave us an overview of the situation in Palestine, including Hamas and Fatah's involvement. And we concluded on a possible way forward. And we hope that some of the countries could come there and crash through the Rafah border and get the aid trucks into Gaza, so they can start dealing with the humanitarian starvation that's taking place. We're going to chat briefly, about Msunduzi Municipality. We haven't spoken very much about that municipality recently. And we have on the line with us Anthony Waldhausen. He's from the Msunduzi Association of Resident Civics, known as the MARRC. Anthony, good evening and welcome to News in Focus live on Radio Al-Ansar International.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me.
Sorry for keeping you waiting. I suppose you enjoyed some of our nasheeds that we were playing. Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel. Our listeners like this nasheed, and that means that everything is in the hands of Almighty. You must have faith in Almighty, and the situation in Palestine, we pray and hope that the Almighty intervenes and deal with the humanitarian crisis that's taking place there. Anthony, I know that your organization was involved in an oversight role of some forensic investigations that are taking place in Msunduzi with the chairperson, Ravi Pillai. With me, I have in the studio Samuel Kennedy. He's a political activist, a civic activist. He's involved in activism throughout the country, and he's got a keen interest in Msunduzi and Pietermaritzburg. So I'm going to request him to have a chat with you briefly. Samuel, good evening and welcome to News in Focus. And perhaps you wanted to have a brief chat with Anthony Waldhausen.
Good evening, Yunus, and thank you for the opportunity. Thank you to the listeners as well. And I know the gentleman fairly well. I was on their election debate program in 2021. So I know the work they do in Pietermaritzburg, so it would be interesting for him to share and give an update in terms of the work that they've either uncovered or the work that they've put together or the work that they've exposed, so that it enables us to, on behalf of the listeners, particularly in Maritzburg, because we have a very big interest in Maritzburg, particularly the radio station, to dissect and get some information from him, which will help put residents at ease, but will also, if true, expose all the shenanigans that are happening in Msunduzi. So, Mark, welcome, and floor is yours.
Thank you, Stanley. Yes, well, things are still at the same. Previously we had interviews with this radio station, and we can report that nothing has changed within Msunduzi municipality. We still continue with the actual with the infrastructure, especially electricity and water infrastructure outages on a daily basis. This week we have residents in the northern areas been without water for the past 10 days. That just shows to you that the infrastructure in Maritzburg is really falling apart. Other than that, we continue as an organization to engage with residents, to educate them and work with them, and to also to make them realize that they do have a voice and they do have the power to hold municipality accountable, but also the councillors as well, to hold them all accountable.
I think the question for the listeners, Mark, and sorry to sort of...
Yeah, no, I'm getting there.
Apology.
No, I'm getting there. Just
how would we say Msunduzi being the capital of the province, we should be taking a lead from you guys. That's what the residents would be saying. So would appreciate if you can sort of unpack the pressure that you're putting on this municipality.
Well, we're putting quite a lot of pressure on this municipality. For example, we actually have met with Ravi Pillay. He's the chairperson of the Premier's working group. He gave us a background of the purpose of that working group. We've also have met with the forensic team at the KZN PSF, who's actually are doing which was a Section 106 investigation into Msunduzi municipality. But unfortunately, I'm not able to give much information around that investigation because it's just recently started. But what I can say is that the council, as well as some of the senior staff, are pushing back to want to stop the actual investigation. And we have actually been interviewed by East Coast Radio as well as ENCA, and we've actually made the statement is that, why do you want to stop this investigation? Do you have anything to hide? So we actually are putting pressure on the municipality for this investigation to actually go ahead, and which they are going to be going ahead. And we have submitted information to the forensic investigating team, which does expose some corruption within the municipality, and we're hoping that this investigation will actually unearth much more of the actual rot in our city.
So you're saying, and I'm throwing a curveball at you. So you're saying that you want the investigation to be investigated by the organization that actually is perpetuating the allegations.
No, the actual the embassy of Cocta, the forensic team from KZN Cocta is actually going to be will be investigating the municipality, and we have submitted information to them that related to alleged corruption and maladministration within the municipality, and they will have to investigate.
And I mean, I'm talking about, for example, former honorable member Ravi Pillay. I mean, he's in the Premier's office. This is a critical matter. It's a sensitive matter. You've been raising these issues, from my understanding, for the last 5 years as MARRC. And residents are wanting to know what are the outcomes that people can be confident going into 2026 local government elections.
Well, just to clarify, Ravi Pillay is not part of this investigation. He's actually the chairperson of the Premier's working group. So the whole purpose of the working group is to provide support to the municipality. The Section 106 is a separate entity that is investigating who's doing a forensic investigation into the municipality. So from our side is that we're hoping that they will actually unearth a lot of the rot in the municipality, which then can be actually move on to actually the conviction of some of the probably municipal staff and politicians as well. And we
Can I ask the question, Anthony? And I mean, I know time is of the essence, so I'm a bit under pressure for time. There appears to be allegation against the mayor, in that apparently there's a post, whether it's a post on social media that's being circulated which links him to the former or the late former Secretary General of the Youth League, Makaka. Have you guys been involved in that? What's the impact of that, and how is it? I mean, it's a fact that the last 20 years, Msunduzi has either been in administration or has been fraught with bad publicity, poor service delivery, maladministration, incapacity. I don't want to use the word incompetence because that we could be taking the task for that. So Msunduzi has generally over the last 2 to 3 decades just been a case of poor. What's your response to that?
Well, just to clarify, the municipality has actually posted a claim that around the mayor as fake news, because the actual former municipal manager of Mzimkhulu, a local municipality, was actually arrested for that the murder for that councillor, not the mayor. So that's the municipality has actually posted on their Facebook page that it is fake news. That you're referring to.
Yeah.
But overall, the thing is that we really need from our side to put pressure onto the municipality to deal with all the challenges we're experiencing. And this is from our side what we've actually been very proactive in that we actually engaging mostly with the senior staff around the RDP and the budgeting process. And this is where we as residents are getting more involved to actually highlight and to include issues and areas of actual addressing the development of the city through the RDP and budgeting process. And just on the other side of things, from my side personally, I'm just actually doing a 3-year diploma in local government management, and I'm actually doing a research project around public participation. And my engagement with the RDP manager and the manager at the Speaker's office, whereby we're actually looking at implementing proactive steps to make sure that residents are more involved in decision-making processes at the municipality. And this is where we can to monitor and actually to highlight and bring out all these issues, the poor expenditure and things like that. So this is where we're going to be much more proactive.
Anthony, the question that I'm sure the listeners want to know is that eThekwini, for example, is under the President of the Republic has commissioned what they call the Presidential Working Task Team, or Presidential Working Group. And we've seen in eThekwini, for example, the chaos 2 years ago versus now. I mean, things have improved, not to a point of satisfaction, but they've certainly improved phenomenally. And the question I'm asking MARRC and every other ratepayers association in Msunduzi is, why haven't you or the ruling party in Msunduzi or the provincial government of unity asked for a replica of the PWG in Msunduzi? Or have you not thought about it?
What was that again, sorry? The
President of the Republic, Cyril Ramaphosa, has appointed in the city of Joburg and in the city of eThekwini a task team that reports to him. So he's parachuted some people onto the task team on the administration of the cities to get the standard of service delivery up. Right? The question I'm asking is, why hasn't it been done for PMB?
Well, we have actually written to the minister, the national minister of Cocktail to
No, I'm not
actually.
talking about the national minister. I'm talking about the president.
Well, this is the thing: as we have to follow the due process in respect of going to the national national minister of Cocktail. We actually asked that for the national minister to intervene as well, and
what did the national, because the national minister is an IFP guy. So what did he do?
Well, there was no response. I think what they're doing is internally that they actually pushed it over to the KZN Cocktail to intervene, and this is why the Premier has intervened to establish this working group to assist the municipality, and then also the MSC has actually instituted Section 106 of the Municipal Systems Act, whereby they are going to be doing a forensic investigation, and are hoping that through this investigation, where you'll actually unearth a lot of the rots in the municipality, and all the corruption will come out from this. And from there onwards, then we can actually then take it further to actually make sure that these suspects are actually allegations against either the politicians or the municipal staff, that they actually be convicted for these allegations against them.
Before I hand you over to Yunus, just one final thing, just a comment, and I'm sure you'd appreciate it. We've just seen the President of the Republic call a commission of inquiry into the Mkhwanazi issue. And we've probably had about 8 or 10 commissions of inquiries. Have you got any hope that this is another one of these inquiries? We don't know how long it will take. Thanks, Yunus.
Go ahead, Anthony. You can respond to that last question by Samuel.
Well, I think the Section 106 investigation will look into the actual allegations, and the forensic team from Cocktail are going to be investigating this, and whatever comes out of it will then refer to the MPA and the Hawks for actual prosecution of whatever they've unearthed. So we're hoping that this does happen, and that we do identify those alleged perpetrators within the municipality, as well as the politicians that are involved in this corruption. And we're hoping from our side that what we've submitted because we've also submitted the sort of a dossier to the Premier's hotline. And this is where the actual forensic team has managed to get all the information already, and we've substantiated further with what we submitted to them recently.
So, Anthony, just one final question, and we're going to conclude on this one, is that we got a lot of listeners in Pietermaritzburg, in and around the municipality area, Allendale, Northdale, Racetop, Mountain Rise, and those particular areas. And when you drive into central Piemberg, the roads are in a bad state, infrastructure is in a bad state, and you mentioned for the past 10 days, the infrastructure is falling down, there's water outages, etc. Do you see the service delivery deteriorating gradually in Piemberg, or are you hopeful that there will be some improvement going forward?
Well, I think it's actually deteriorated to a bad state of affairs at the moment. But I think from our side as residents, this is why we're advocating for residents to get much more involved in the issues, and not just sit back and to actually challenge the municipality. And this is why we're wanting residents to get more involved in the RDP and budgeting processes, so they can actually have projects implemented in their own wards. And this is where the proactiveness from citizens will actually see the changes, not because we cannot rely on these politicians, because it's all for themselves, and we then need from our side to hold them accountable. And this is what we, from MARRC's side of things, have been doing. And this is why we've got this, because we've been advocating for the forensic investigation, and now we do have it now.
Okay, thank you, Anthony, for joining us. And we trust and hope that there will be some changes with the intervention of civil society as well as ratepayer associations in holding the municipality accountable. And we wish you everything of the best in your endeavors to ensure that service delivery is improved in Msunduzi. Thank you for joining us, Anthony.
Sorry, can I just add one thing there, if it's possible?
Yes, you can add on.
Just to mention to you that at the moment the national minister is actually doing a review of the white paper on local government, and from our side we've actually made a submission on how we can actually overhaul local government, and that in itself is where we need to actually start as well, to actually turn, in order to turn municipalities around, we need to overhaul local government completely.
Correct, and at least there's some kind of intervention going on. But I'm sure you guys are mobilizing for elections 2026 and make sure you've got the right candidates to be elected so they can hold the municipality accountable. But we will chat with you sometime in the future, Anthony, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks a lot for having me. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. That was Anthony Waldhausen, Msunduzi Association of Resident Civics, MARRC. They're doing a lot of good work in the Msunduzi area, and we wish them everything of the best. We will keep in touch with the civic reps in Pietermaritzburg from time to time. On that note, we'll take a short break, and inshallah after the break we'll continue with our program, wherein we'll have Hassan Motala to give us some financial perspective of the situation in South Africa.
That's all right.
Get ready for an evening of inspiration and impact. Join Islamic Lifestyle Solutions for their annual fundraising featuring a powerful book launch, Divine Calling.
They keep on saying that we're not giving them coverage, so that's why we went
including a free
Let's play that nasheed after that, and then we can start with our finance.
15th August 2025 at NNJ Islamic Center, 6 p.m. Tickets only 250 rand. No reserved seat. Don't miss out. Across Africa and the world.
We're moving fast, yeah. Just now it'll be 10:15. Ask him once we continue with the rest of the interview.
No, I listen when I'm at home.
Enjoying it. Good stuff.
Or Africa, for 65,000 rand, or any amount.
Especially
With
on
water comes food,
Topical,
health, education, and growth.
We could put
An
this
ongoing reward
but
with
I break it up with
agency.
nasheeds because I don't
Ready to elevate your fitness game at first
enjoy it.
Give back.
I play about 3 or 4 nasheeds.
It
Like you'll see this nasheed,
enjoy high security and ample parking. And don't forget to refuel at our halal coffee and health restaurant for the best in coffee, smoothies, and healthy eats. Join us today and redefine your fitness journey. First Fitness, dare to be extraordinary.
Welcome to Civics Radio. Visit our showroom for the full range of car audio. Our TV department carries top brands with quality LED panels, full HD to Ultra HD, and now the experience of Super Ultra HD. Visit our theater rooms and transform your home with brands like Onkyo, Integra, Denon, Boston Acoustics, Yamaha, and more for quality audio visual experience. Now available full range of home appliances. A one-stop shopping experience. Call 031 306 4029 or Kenilworth Park, 202 Brickville Road, Old Port. Simplex Radio, the name you can trust.
Audio stream across the world on radioalansar.co.za.
Which one? This one, yeah. Yeah.
There was a comment.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
As it is, he just moves. He just chop this and take this. When he goes, whatever,
I agree with what he said.
You wouldn't be.
Yeah.
She seems to. You can see she's like this.
Isn't the one before the other one? The two-state solution or something.
Yeah.
So let's go through that one. Yeah, and then we'll go through the next one.
I think
Yeah, let's go through this one and then we'll go through the next one.
Signal me
When he
when
goes,
you
she's gonna
Yeah.
push.
there.
You smoke this one,
So
Hassan?
definitely,
it's a new rhythm. Yeah.
Yeah. The lady sings it well. But those that know the meaning, they get crazy, yeah?
This is the perspective. It's east. So the issue is how many. We think it's 50 seats. 50 seats out of 220. It's really 25% in. Say 22%. So they've already hit 22. Now, the statistics we have is that of all the black votes, they've taken the highest vote. So,
You know what that means?
let's just say it's another
If you were not born, there would be no world. Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Allah didn't create you, the world was never evil. So you were created to create this world. And some guys, they can, without remembering your name, I can't sleep. When I want to sleep, I take your name. And I send salams upon you, then I can follow this law. So they're going to get 50%.
Those who are ashiks.
Yeah, and they say when we're depressed, I send salams upon you.
Urbanites, say that Msunduzi. You need to brace yourself because let me tell you now, I think Msunduzi is suffering from post-traumatic stress, pre-traumatic stress. It's the cause of prison. It's like this issue with the South African he's brought them everywhere. I think they realize today's D-Day. You can't change.
They're giving in, they're saying that they've committed the fact that they've said
Where's that?
X much election passage in 10 years. They've indicated that they're giving
It's annual pay, eh?
It's committing. They're asking for returns besides the city investments in things like shipbuilding and shipbuilding. So with all the shipbuilding, things like oranges and it's counter seasons. The biggest counter season which makes sense.
So once he finishes this part, then you can kill this. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Peter Marisburg 105.6 FM, and streaming on www.alansar.org.za. Before the news break and before the break, we obviously were discussing with Anthony Waldhausen on the situation in Msunduzi, and indeed the situation is extremely disappointing and bad. They are hopeful with the forensic investigation that's taking place, service delivery can be improved. But what they were recommending is that the various wards, civil society, and ratepayer associations get more active to hold the municipality accountable, and the purpose is to ensure that at least areas of concern are dealt with. Now, we're just going to go through a couple of messages that have come through. Anwar Pir has indicated that the two-state solution is impossible because Zionism is structurally incapable of accepting Palestinian sovereignty. Its survival depends on erasing Palestinians physically, genetically, and historically. The document calls not for partition but for decolonization, a single state where all live equally, or the inevitable collapse of Zionist apartheid. As the text asserts, the land remembers, the land returns, the land is ours. Now, in South Africa, we initially started off with a government of national unity, and when elections took place, then the will of the people prevailed, and we had a democratic government. So this is what the people of Palestine are saying, but the rest of the world is saying two-state solution. Israel are like the bully boys, and they're going to fall, inshallah, in time to come. Certainly the tyrannical acts and genocide that's taking place is not gone unnoticed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and as Muslims we have to make du'as for our people, and you can bring a downfall to them. There's another message that's come through from one of our listeners. He says, Salams, Mr. Sacoor, can we have a drive by South Africans to start a fund to supply Gaza with the following nutritious food: peanut butter, milk, fortified biscuits or crackers, jam. These can be packed on sachets, 100 mils and 160 grams. It will be easier to transport as well as to drop off from the sky. This will not need cooking so as to reach the Gazans. So we need all creative ways to get the aid to the Gazans. I know the Gift of the Givers and other organizations have sent a lot of relief, but those trucks are jammed in the Rafah border. And as I mentioned with Dr. Lubna Nadvi, that some kind of mafia-style intervention needs to take place, and then catch the Zionists by surprise and go through the borders with the aid trucks, and those countries that are tough from a sort of army point of view can go in and intervene as well. She was cynically talking about the South African army, but they're absolutely useless. We've seen snippets of notes coming through where they have antique arms and ammunition, and they need to get the act together as well. But I'd like to just move on today's interview, and we need to talk about the financial impact all this has had on the world, particularly Trump's tariff charges, particularly in South Africa, the 30% tariff. And the community was hopeful before the 1st of August that some kind of negotiation can take place with Donald Duck Trump, with a view to get him to reduce. But of concern, is the citrus growers. They're urging Ramaphosa to, contact U.S., which imposed a 30% tariff on citrus imports from South Africa. The Citrus Growers Association of South Africa has called on President Ramaphosa to act urgently to prevent economic damage to key agricultural regions. And this week, with the tariff deadline on Friday, this is one of the great anxieties for the citrus growers in Western and Northern Cape. These two provinces annually export 7 million cartons to the U.S., the CEO mentioned. And they are basically calling for the president to negotiate an extension of the current tariffs so that he could bring it down to 10%, so that it wouldn't have such a big impact, because 30% will really affect them. I'd like to bring in Hassan. Hassan, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and thank you for joining us, and welcome to News in Focus.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Hassan, you mentioned that the JSE has almost hit 100,000, and I think today is sitting at 99.5 thousand. I'm becoming like Zuma, 99,500, When Zuma was mentioning numbers, he was mixing himself up. But it hit 100,000, which means there's positive sentiment in the all-share index. The rand has climbed up. It was sitting around 1740 or 1750. Now it's 1790. So what's causing this fluctuation, Hassan?
Sure.
And then we can respond to the citrus growers' concerns.
So the volatility in the rand is largely been driven by the weakness or volatility in the US dollar. If you look at the US dollar against all major currencies, whether it's the British pound, the euro, the Japanese yen, and then also major emerging market currencies like the Turkish lira, the South African rand, and the Mexican peso, there's been massive movements, particularly over the last couple of months, mainly because of the potential risks and threats around the tariffs. Now remember, tomorrow is the deadline for all tariff negotiations, well, to a large extent to be completed by tomorrow, because as of the 1st of August, the proposed tariffs that Trump had indicated in the letters that he had submitted to most country presidents, including President Ramaphosa a few weeks ago, is meant to come into play. Now, South Africa, as we're sitting here today, now has not negotiated a bilateral trade deal with the US as yet. We've had other major blocs that have done it during the course of this past week. One of the biggest ones that has taken place is the European Union and the US. European Union is the largest exporter to the US. So to put it into perspective, US 20% of total US imports comes from Europe. It's over $300 billion annually that comes into the US just from European imports. The second largest is Mexico, which comes in at about 15%, Canada, and then China comes in only at fourth at about 10%. So it just gives you an idea that Europe and America are still major trading partners, and therefore getting that trade deal done between Europe and the US was an important point, because there was potentially a big impact from a global economic perspective. Secondly, what did they settle on? They settled on a tariff of 15%. As we spoke about, I think was it last week or the week before as well, we indicated that it seems to be that the US the Trump administration is looking to settle at most trade deals around the 15% mark. So it's a lot higher than what it used to be. Remember, most imports that were coming into the US were tariffed at around 3% for majority of the goods. Now that bar would be moving up to around 15%, which is a lot higher, but it is lower than the proposed 30% or 35% type of tariffs which Trump is for. For example, South Africa, he's talked about 30% tariff increases, excluding obviously the imported minerals and materials such as platinum group metals and the like. But it has a significant impact. Now, I think if we the next day, the next 2 days, we'll see how it goes out. We're hoping that we get a trade deal done for South Africa. And there's a couple of key sticking points. So and I was chatting earlier to Samuel about this as well. Samuel indicated as well, and he highlighted that what is one of the key things or important theme that you're seeing in Trump's deals across the board that he's done. In every one of them, he wants something to be put back into the US. Whether it was with the Middle Eastern countries, whether it was the Asian countries like Japan, or whether it was the European countries like for example, the European Union. The EU has agreed to purchase $750 billion worth of American energy products. They've also agreed to invest $600 billion in the US on top of their normal expenditures that they do. So he's expecting them to put something back into the US. Similarly with Japan. Japan has to put in new plants and infrastructure, like the likes of Toyota have to actually put in some infrastructure and plants in the US to get that. So now you come into a country like South Africa, we're a small country, we've got our own challenges, our debt levels are massively high. what can we, as a small nation, offer to a country like the US? And we're talking about not about rands, we're talking about putting into dollars. So one of the deals that South Africa is trying to get across is to say, well, and we are a net importer of energy products, whether it's oil and gas, we normally import a big portion of our products. So they're telling the US, and one of the deals that they're putting through is to say, well, over a 10-year period, we'll import potentially, let me see what the number they're talking about. They're talking about, I think it was about $12 billion worth of gas coming to the country, which is not unrealistic. The fact that we do import a lot of our oil and gas, it can be done, but that means we may not trade with certain other partners or reduce our trade with other partners, but increasing trade with the US. And there's talk about also putting in some investments in certain mining and related activity in the US as well. One of the sticking points that seems to be emerging is the issue around Black economic empowerment. Remember, Trump's been going on a tangent of this year for the last couple of months, whether it's the farmers and the white minority are being oppressed and the like. He did it when the president also went and met with him in Washington not too long ago. And he's going on again about the first raised by Elon Musk, but now he's continuing on that path. So that seems to be one of the challenges in terms of the negotiations that's taking place. And then I think obviously the other key issue, and it's coming back to your point, Yunus, you highlighted about the citrus area. Remember citrus? South Africa is the second largest exporter of oranges in the world. The largest exporter is Spain. But we do not compete with the crop that comes out of that is produced in the US because we work on different seasons. Our summer and our winter season is now, which is our citrus season, which doesn't coincide with the winter season in the US. Their winter season is November, December, January, February. That's when their citrus season. Our citrus seasons now, when we begin to do our exports now, is this July, August, September. It's our winter now. So we're working on different seasonalities, and the South African trading team or deal team is trying to get that point across that we're not competing with US producers in terms of oranges and lemons or whatever it may be. So there should not be any tariffs or reduced tariffs, like how US has now agreed with Chile and Peru, who are also exporting citrus to those countries. US has agreed to a 10% tariff on orange imports into the US from those countries. I think South Africa is trying to get a similar deal in place to help our citrus producers. But if it remains at 30%, the first season and the first year, there will be a massive impact on the citrus agricultural sector in this country. There will be a massive loss of jobs in that particular sector, particularly the first year. But I think over time they'll be able to slowly adjust towards it. But within the first 12, 18 months, there will be a massive impact. The other major sector, so that when we're talking about the two major sectors that will be impacted if 30% is implemented on Friday, it's the agricultural sector and it is the automotive sector. The potential loss of jobs in those two sectors is 100,000 jobs that could be lost if those 30% tariffs are impacted. Eastern Cape will be on a ventilator because they are hugely reliant on the automotive sector. And if there's a massive loss of jobs and there's plants that end up being closed because of that, that particular province and the cities and towns in that province will come under massive pressure. So I think that there are challenges, and I said it's only the next day or two, and we'll know whether there's hopefully some deal. I think if they get a 15% tariff, our manufacturers, while it's not ideal and it will hurt, it will be at least a scenario which they can work with and they can adapt with. But a 30% scenario will be it will put them in a really, really tough situation and will result in obviously those two sectors in particular being impacted quite badly.
I just want to bring in Samuel. Samuel, we're just chatting once again. I know the situation with this tariff adjustments is becoming a problem, but the United States are mulling over sanctions against South Africa in respect of, certain ANC politicians. And Mike Mabuya says that South Africa is ready for it. He says, when we decided to take Israel to the International Court of Justice, we knew what was going to follow, that friends of Israeli apartheid state would isolate us, and that is what's happening now. Yes, we will suffer the consequences, but we are prepared because we are standing up for just cause. So obviously, Trump has got in the back of his mind what South Africa did to Israel, and being, complicit with Israel. I'm not sure whether they're trying to use that as a bargaining tool to get South Africa to take it easy, and then they can relook at the tariffs. Or what is your view on that aspect, Samuel?
Thanks, Yunus. It's a very complex, very broad, sweeping statement that Mike has made, and I'll tell you why. It's because you cannot sit in a position of privilege and make a pronouncement on behalf of all of society, because that's not the view of the ordinary people. And that is what they call in political science elitism, where elites make statements on behalf of the masses, what they call the proletariat, and bourgeoisie or semi-bourgeoisie, petty bourgeoisie, take decisions that the proletariat haven't contributed to. And here's the rub. It may be factual, but it's not, because India has just been hit with a heavy tariff as well, and India has got no contribution to Israel. So Trump's hit India is hit India very hard. In fact, I think 1st of August, Hassan, India is 50% tariff. We're only sitting at 40. So politicians, ordinary people, mustn't be guided or be channeled by political rhetoric, particularly coming from elites who sit in positions of privilege. The facts are that in fact, it's no longer if, Hassan, it's now when. When tariffs kick in, there's going to be a hemorrhage. And it's not going to just affect, because remember, every industry has sub-industries. So in other words, there's logistics, there's mechanical, there's packaging, there's labor, there's a whole lot of factors. There's municipalities, there's rates that are all contributors or benefactors of an industry. So for example, the automotive industry in East London is going to take a knock. East London as a municipality will lose whatever the percentage of revenue is. Huge. Because Mercedes-Benz was East London. The same is in Citrusdal or the various areas where citrus is. The ports are going to die. There's not going to be much revenue going to, much activity going to the ports. So ultimately, two things are going to happen. One, the South African government is going to have to fund through UIF, through TERS, those who are impacted by job losses. It's going to be a bloodbath. And so we're saying to politicians, please, when you say things, say it with compassion so that people are not left to wander in the crosshairs or in the window of uncertainty. It's ordinary people. And then taxes. Your income, your fiscus is going to be affected. With citrus, they say, is $1.6 billion. Automotive industry is more, because you've also got right-hand vehicles from BMW going into the US. You've got Toyota right-hand vehicles going to the US. You've got VW Golfs going to the US. You've got C-Class 200, 220 from East London going to the US. So the whole industry, and to be honest with you, just take a walk down to the coast. Normally there's 30, 35 ships currently sitting at 9, max 10. That's a factor. You can see it. You don't even need to go and study economics. You can see that imports are dead, exports, because some of the ships sitting out there are waiting to load to go. It's nothing. Either we're going to have a fresh election, because this government of national unity has made so many promises and they've delivered on zero. Zero. They can't even sort out local government. Anthony Waldhausen talks about local government bill, which is a white paper. That's another 12 months. That will only be effective after the next local government elections, which means next local government elections, the guys coming in are going to follow the same pattern until the project is signed or sent it to by the president, which could be 2028. So there's a lot of stuff. And then thirdly, and Hassan must pick up on that through you, Yunus, our debt to GDP is sitting at over 76%, meaning for every rand we collect in revenue, there's only 30%, up to 30% left for spending in infrastructure or whatever, salaries and infrastructure. That is where our problem is. We don't have money to build houses, to build roads, for better. So if you look at Hassan, please, when Yunus speaks to you, in the last week, I've seen Development Bank BRICS, I've seen Development Bank China, I've seen loans are coming through fast and furious. How are we going to pay those loans? And I think that's a question listeners want to hear. Thanks, Yunus.
Yeah, some pertinent comments, Sam. I know that when Trump said this, Cyril Ramaphosa has reacted with calm to the looming threat, because he does understand that Trump is calling the shots at the moment. But you mentioned about a loan. South Africa secures a 10.4 billion loan from the Development Bank of Japan, and they're carrying on acquiring more and more loans. Hassan, how are they going to repay these loans? Because already, as Sam said, they're in dire straits, and borrowing money. They say they're going to borrow this money to improve, the infrastructure on energy. So, do you foresee the situation getting from bad to worse, Hassan?
The issue with the debt is a big issue. I mean, we've highlighted when we had the budget that came out. So the budget's been finally approved today. But in terms of our debt outlook, is still it's very challenging. Unless you get a massive pickup in terms of GDP growth, and which contributes to increasing revenues, and if SARS pulls out all the stops and gets the extra revenue that they've been tasked to try and generate as well, we will continue facing challenges through the increased debt levels. I mean, to pay 22 cents of every rand that we generated just to service our debts is massive. And the only way you really can sort of move out of it is to, firstly, you need to cut back on non-essential expenditure. You need to focus on enabling the economy. And enabling the economy means getting infrastructure right, whether it's potholes, or whether it's electricity supply, or whether it's water supply. Getting those basics. Earlier we had in the program, they're talking about Msunduzi Municipality. Municipality has been in administration for 20 years. And that's been terribly run. Earlier today, I read an article about how roads, the Grahamstown Festival, that municipality, exceptionally terribly run over the last 15, 20 years. That was supposed to be one of the top festivals we had in the country, which used to attract huge amount of visitors and tourists into the town, lively events. You had arts, you had so many shows that took place. At the peak during that time, there was close to 500-600 shows. This past year, only 200 odd shows that had taken place. And in many of the days that the festival took place, there was no lights in the town area. How can you have municipality? So if you don't get infrastructure right, and now the loans are coming is because they're talking about putting it towards infrastructure. But are we gonna? Is the money actually go into infrastructure, or it's gonna go again to some corruption and some for? Today, the talk, the big headlines was around the IDT, Independent Development Trust saga, which was 800 odd million rands that was meant to be spent for a hospital oxygen plant. And guess what? The original tender for that was just over 200 million rands, 215 or 225 million rands. And because of whoever it was allocated to and the fraud and the corruption that had taken place, that ballooned to 800 and odd million rands. Now, how can this continue in this year? One thing we are seeing, though, slowly, there's been all of a sudden the hawks seem to have woken up, and you have seen arrests being taken place now. It's like and sort of cases now slowly starting to. There's some momentum. We've been just tracking the last couple of weeks or months. There's been slowly some momentum in terms of now some of these cases coming up and arrests being taken place as well. Hopefully, we'll actually see, those cases follow through and convictions actually taking place, which has been the big issue that we've had. But the issue again, Yunus, comes that these loans are coming. If they used effectively, or whether it's for transit or whether it's for proper infrastructure on the road or the water and the like, then that is good use of funds that will be revenue generating in the future. But if it is being used to just continue to pay salary increases, being used to line the pockets of certain individuals within the various organizations, then it's putting us in more and more dire straits, which not only us, not only the next generation, but future generations to come will be continuing to paying for it years and years into the future. And that's the key risk and key issue we face if our debt levels are not managed effectively, especially over the next 5 years.
So effectively, what we're facing is the impact of corruption and maladministration in the last 2 decades by the different, presidents that were in power. And the situation is getting bad to worse because all the people are doing is utilizing the money for their own benefit. So what Samuel has alluded to is that the voters need to catch a wake-up call and appoint a government that will administer for the interests of the people. And the local government elections is a year or so away, and we have to mobilize now to make sure you get the correct leaders in power and the correct government in power, and then that will be a difficult situation given the way elections have been going in the last decade or so, to bring about drastic changes to improve administration, service delivery, because this is a common occurrence in all the provinces, that the provinces are not being run properly. Besides the Western Cape, the other provinces are run with huge problems. The municipalities, 90% of them have got qualified audit opinions with a large degree of irregular expenditure. So now is an opportunity for ratepayer associations, civic associations to mobilize and make sure you create leaders that would make themselves available to be, elected as councillors for the different wards. And at least you can chip away and start holding the powers of be accountable. So let's mobilize now. In terms of Palestine, I want to conclude. We ran out of time. Trump said that the U.S. and its partners would help set up food centers to feed the more than 2 million Palestinians in Gaza facing what UN agencies warn is a deadly wave of hunger and malnutrition. He's mentioning that we're going to be getting some food, good, strong food out there, and we can save a lot of people. I mean, some of those kids, that real starvation stuff, he told reporters at a news conference with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. He made that statement, but yet he allowed the genocide to go ahead. I mean, he's been president for quite a while now, and he ought to have stopped the war, because he says under his administration, he doesn't encourage war. So he's saying that we have to help on a humanitarian basis before we do anything. We have to get the kids fed. Trump's remarks came after Netanyahu, during a reception on Sunday for Trump's spiritual advisor Paula White-Cain in Jerusalem, declared there is no starvation in Gaza, no policy of starvation in Gaza. So he's denying what's going on there. But we are hope for the benefit of the people out there that humanitarian aid does flow into Gaza, and this issue of starvation comes to a halt, and the U.S. does listen to the noises of people throughout the world that access to food centers, etc., must be made easy for the people of Palestine. So having said that, Samuel, I'm giving you 2 minutes just to wrap up this evening's News in Focus. We didn't have much time to talk about Mkhwanazi inquest. There have been counter allegations of corruption against him. They're citing him for being involved in certain kidnaps, etc. Some critics are saying that this is intended to blemish, the allegations that he made. So, what's your take on that, Samuel?
Thank you, Yunus. Can I just say the following as a summary or as a summation? Anybody who pronounces that implicates the African National Congress whilst they're in government will face the wrath or the ire as a defense mechanism of the ruling party. A wounded animal fights best when it's pressed in a corner and it's under pressure, and it happens all over the world. The worry I have with ordinary South Africans, they haven't qualified, or in other words, the allegations made by General Mkhwanazi have not been tested. But we've got all of South Africa generally who are saying hands off Mkhwanazi, hands off this, hands off that, as if whatever the guy says is now a supreme being. Law says an allegation must be tested. Right? The problem in our country is that the judicial system is stretched, is not broad enough to deal with things decisively. So that's why we call all these retired judges back, and the courts are full. I mean, the lead time in courts is between 6 and 12 months. So South Africans are caught in this quandrum, or this quandary, in other words, where it's frustration. So it's like a drowning man clutching at a straw in the sea. We clutch on any little thing which seems to tick their frustration button. But here's where ordinary South Africans are not effective participators. We continue voting for the same thing, but we complain later. The only way change can occur is twofold. One, you've got to vote right, because power is in the ballot box. But two, and most importantly, and we're not saying who you must vote for, but two, and most importantly, the average polling rate, or the average voter turnout, like that's a better word, it's probably only about between, if you look at all by-elections, some of them are even worse, between 30 and 50%. You've got to come out and vote. If you want to make a change in your city, you want to make a change in your neighborhood, you want to make a change in your country, you want to, let me put it to you this way. I had a very interesting chat with an extremely senior guy over the last couple of days. Let me leave you with this fact, and actually I've forgotten about it. Did you know from the Mozambique border on the coast to the Namibian border on the west coast, there are only 4 Coast Guard boats. That's about 4,000 kilometers of coastline. How certain are you that contraband and illicit flows are not coming off the boats because there's no coast guards. The only way you ascertain stuff legally is at the port. So what do we know is happening between the ship coming to the port, anchoring before it gets to the port? There's only 4 coast guards. It's crazy. We've got no capacity on border control. We've got no capacity militarily. We've got no capacity in the navally. We've got no capacity anywhere. And the next issue is, and I raised this a year ago, when we did the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, we didn't go deep enough. It focused primarily on torture, on black violence, on apartheid state instigations, but it never focused on, I just drove through Block AK, with the Daily News opposite the Gravel Racecourse. That land claim, 30 years later, has not been solved. Same on Woodstock. Nobody's spoken about all the Indian people and the colored people who were forcefully removed from Cato Manor, Kumban, Naval, people who lost their houses, who were never compensated. Land claims have never been attended to. South Africa, through its compromise, has not fulfilled what its intended object was in 1994. That black people still have, when I talk about black, I talk about constitutionally, colored, those referred to as Indian, and white and African people, those referred to as African. We're all black in terms of constitution. Those are all unanswered questions. And so ordinary people see an elite group of people. I just heard today one fellow got found dead in Mhlanga. He had 18 million in the safe. 18 million cash. One guy. And those are the issues that make ordinary people frustrated. Lastly, with no disrespect, so we're not painting white people in a corner, but the truth needs to be told. How white people amassed generational wealth. When I listened to this guy, Rob Hersov, the other day, saying that white primarily, and they're primarily owned by white companies, by white people. Big business is sitting with 1.7 trillion rands worth of monies that could have been used in investment and haven't invested it because of corruption. The question you're going to ask is, okay, apart from it, most of it being publicly listed, so some of it is offshore funds. If it's local, how was that amassed? Has anybody asked those questions? Where did that money come from? We can prove most of those defined as black came to South Africa for the Indian community as Indian traders. They worked their way up. Also doctors, lawyers, accountants, surgeons, and so forth. And you can put a value to their generational wealth. But we can't put a value yet to the generational wealth that was accrued over the last 300 years. And that's where the frustration is. Now, the last thing we don't want is an uprising. So government, this is why people vote. You want a government that can go and represent you. And as long as they're not representing your needs, we're going to sit where we pay 1 billion rands worth of interest a day. Besides paying for the loan, 1 billion, 365 billion, which is nearly 33% over, just under 30%, I apologize. Under 30% of the total revenue collected is paid on interest. That's the worry. I thank you.
Thanks. Some very important comments Sam has brought to our attention. That brings us to the end of News in Focus. We've ran out of time. We're 20 minutes over our normal time. I must thank our guests Hassan, Lubna Nadvi, Anthony Waldhausen, Sam for joining us this evening. think we had quite a constructive discussion on the Mkhwanazi inquest update. We'll follow that closely going forward. We also had a nice overview on the Palestinian situation, Fatah Movement, Hamas, and the other countries involved in aid for Gaza. And service delivery update from Msunduzi Municipality. The situation is getting bad to us. We're going to keep in touch with all these topics going forward into the elections. We're trying to focus on what's topical, because Lubna gave us an update on that ship that was docking with dangerous arms and ammunition heading towards Israel. So people are keeping a close check. But back at home, Hassan has alerted us that from a financial perspective, whilst the rand is not doing too bad, the real value of the rand is far from what it is at the moment. Hopefully the price of petrol will be coming down in the next few days, because the dollar had deteriorated a bit or depreciated, and oil is at somewhat lower levels. So we hope that we can have a 50-60 cents decrease in the price of petrol. But I want to close on the basis that, as I always remind, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in control of the world. And as such, we have to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for assistance and guidance worldwide. People are dying in large numbers throughout the world. And, as Sam mentioned, one individual amassed 18 million and was killed in Amshlanga. So life is like that. The wealth doesn't follow you in your grave. So this is what, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has warned us in the Holy Quran, that you're going to take nothing. All you're going to take is your good actions, the humanitarian work you do, your concern for humanity, and obeying the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as shown to us by our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the nasheed that we will continue to play now is the one attributing reverence and importance of the most noble personality in the world, Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Until next Wednesday, where we will continue our discussions further on News in Focus. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thanks, sir. Excellent show. Thanks, Yunus.